Welcome to this edition of Tuesday Talks with Twyla. Hope we are doing very well today. I have a fun but interesting topic to talk about today. So, I just got done reading this book and it had this concept around community. But what was interesting about it was the statistics related to the amount of social interaction that us humans have and the direct correlation with loneliness, which makes sense, but also how we feel about our worthiness. And I thought this was so interesting. Basically, what they found is the more social interaction you have, the higher you have more worthiness. You think of yourself, in a higher regard. But if you spend less time socializing, less time in community, you have more loneliness and you think of yourself as less worthy. And so, if you imagine that impact on ourselves and how that impacts everything in our life, I just thought it was unbelievable. And especially coming off of what we experienced in 2020 with all of the social distancing, right? Everybody was sent home and isolated, and socializing was, not recommended. And so it really was this shift in how much we socialize. I know for me, the amount of socializing that I do now is drastically different than it was before that. And so I found that very interesting that there's also this correlation to our self concept of our worthiness. And in a time where we're hearing that we're in a mental health epidemic, this is huge. It's such an interesting correlation that really has a somewhat simple fix, right? Just get out and socialize. Go out for lunch more often with your friends. Call your family on the phone and have a conversation. But make it intentional. Do it deliberately and do it often. So it doesn't need to be hours on end, right? It can just be that 5-minute phone call, but every day, or that lunch with your friend at least once a week. So it's not like it takes a huge time investment, but it does take a commitment and it does take an investment of your time. And if you imagine when you do have those conversations, right? Like I'm falling into this category. I'm always like, oh, I should go out for lunch with her, and oh, I should make contact and get that scheduled. And I have those thoughts, but I don't follow through. And weeks go by and then months go by, right? Same thing with contacting family. I don't have a lot of family, but I certainly have nephews and a brother and a sister-in-law and an ex-sister-in-law. I mean, I have family I can call and talk to, and friends I can call and just say, hey. I mean, it might be awkward when you haven't talked to them for a really long time, especially on the phone, right? Because we just converse through text, which does not have the connection and that social like glue that we need from the actual interaction. And I've just been like trying to think about like how has that impacted how I feel about myself? And then I don't feel that I am feeling less worthy, but I also can recognize how just wholesome that feels when I do have those interactions, right? Like after I get off the phone with my brother and I'm just like, wow, right? It just feels like a warm hug. It feels good. And I've never analyzed it. I've never psychoanalyzed it. I've just never given it a whole lot of thought until now when I heard this, I guess, statistic. Yeah. And so it's like one of those low-hanging fruit that probably could make a significant impact in people's lives. And in a time where we're all super busy and we're all torn in a million different directions, right? And we feel like, okay, well, if I go to my kid's sporting event, I'm going to, socialize with all the other parents, and you're torn between watching and attending to the kids whatever they need during the event, and then, a little bit of, here and there conversation with your neighbor is different than just that one-on-one connection where you're sitting down and you're connecting with your friends and family. And so I just invite you to be very curious about this in your life and see how it makes you feel. The first part of it really is the fun part, to see and just get really curious and witness and become aware of how it feels when you do have those interactions. And if you don't have any, plan one and really prepare to experience it fully, be present with it and how you feel afterwards, and use that as your fuel for doing it more and more, and do it as a self-care exercise, because it is so important and so good for us. You imagine if you have low self-worth, if you think poorly of yourself, or you talk down to yourself, or you don't talk nice to yourself, how does that impact how you show up in your everyday life? Your daily routines that you want to stick to, that you just, you keep telling yourself, I don't know why you even try, you haven't succeeded yet. That's what I'm talking about. That little voice that just tells you that you're not going to succeed anyway. You're not going to meet your goal. You're not going to actually achieve the intention because you said you were going to do this. And, for the last 3 days, you haven't. So, you're, guess that you're setting it again. So that self-talk, which comes from our self-concept, which comes from our self-worth, getting very curious about that and listening for that. And then take a look at how much socializing you do. So if that's something that will increase your self-worth and make you feel good about yourself, to me, that is such an easy win and kind of a fun experiment, right? So making sure that you connect, making sure that you get out of the house and have some wholesome conversations, have some of those connections and socializations, and just feel it, be present with it, experience it, and then be really curious about any negative self-talk, any negative self-worth, and all of that, and take a look at how much time do I spend talking to myself like that compared to how much time do I spend socializing and really uplifting and filling yourself up with goodness. And I just think that this was really eye-opening to me. And it was really information that goes back to like our caveman days, like how the humans were designed. We were designed to live in community, right? So part of that is, especially in our world today, part of that community is feeling like we fit in, like we're part of the group, right? And when we don't, we feel isolated. We feel judged. We feel like people have opinions about us. We feel like an outcast, right? If you're the only one standing outside of the whole group, and when you're alone, it's easy to start feeling that way, right? And the community back in the caveman days is what helped humans survive, right? I mean, they had power in numbers, and they, came together for everything that they needed to accomplish so that they had each other, because they just didn't have the resources that we have today. And today we have things like social media, which can exponentially exaggerate that judgment and opinions. And if we're seeing all of that on our social media time, that's really creating the complete opposite effect of that wholesome community presence and support and that warm hug and wholesomeness that community creates. And so that's another thing to be very curious about and very present about. When you're on social media, does that make you feel better about yourself, or does it make you feel worse about yourself? And where is that coming from? What are the thoughts that you're having? What are you telling yourself? Are you judging yourself and comparing yourself to others? Are you feeling like everybody else has a community or everybody else has something that you don't have? It really can create, without us even realizing, a sense of compare and despair because we always show all of the good stuff, right, on social media. And so it's easy to have that perfect picture of everybody else's life, and then we just feel worse about our own. So be very careful with that. And just know that community and socialization is inherently built into us as humans, and we need it. It's good for us. It's an easy self-care. It's a 5-minute conversation. It's a fun lunch date with your friend you haven't seen in a while. So I challenge you to implement this in your life. Find ways that you can find the socialization and community within your network. Grow it, build it, reach out to somebody you haven't talked to in a while, an old coworker, someone that you just kind of had lost touch with, but you just think about them often. How many of us have that? It's amazing how many people float through my mind, and yet I never reach out. I never make it an intention to schedule time with that person, but I think about them, several of them, often, right? I mean, I hope they feel that. I hope they feel that love for me, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about actual connection, picking up the phone and having a conversation with that person, connecting with that person, scheduling time to sit down and have lunch or coffee or tea to visit and connect again. So I challenge you to get very present with this one. Get very curious. No judging, no opinions ever. That's never part of this work. Just get curious and find ways to connect and notice how great it feels. And just make it a more regular practice. Maybe just do it as an experiment. Okay, so for the next 10 days or the next 14 days, I'm going to try to do this every day. I'm going to try to do this at least once a week. So that would be, 2 times in the next 14 days. And just grab your journal and take some notes and notice and be present and experience it fully. I invite you. I hope this is a magical experience for you. I will be doing it right along with you. I'm excited to connect with some lost souls that, life has just, I guess I've let life get in the way. I'm not going to blame it on life. I'm going to take responsibility for that. I have not been good about being diligent and intentional about connecting with my loved ones. And I'm going to change that. And I'm so excited to see what unfolds. So let me know how it goes for you. Connect, community, and be curious and experience it. Until next week, I hope you are out with your community. Have a great week.